Welcome back, CFB Nation. I'm your host, Nino Brown. This is Devy Darlings, and I got a very special guest, my guy from across the land, Oliver Hodgkinson. How we doing this evening? I know I kept you up, to the wee hours of the morning to do this, but how we doing?
I'm doing really well, man. I'm caffeinated. I'm inspirated. I don't know if that's a real word. Maybe not. But I'm looking forward to talking some football. It's been a while, man. It's been a while since we've sat down and chopped it up. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think the last time we chopped, we're doing some draft talk, right? Before around the Senior Bowl and draft time. So this time we're talking, Devy Darlings prospects that we think are gonna hit. We talked in the green room a little bit and beforehand about this gentleman, and I think we're both on the same page. We're talking about Oklahoma running back Gavin Sawchuk. I told my guy Boomer Sooner last year if he sniffs the ball in that backfield, I know it's crowded, but if he sniffs the ball, watch out. This kid, he's got all the attributes. Like 5'11", 185 pounds coming in. We'll talk about the weight in a little bit. Redshirt freshman. But before we get into all that, let's talk a little bit at Valor Christian High School, right? Because his senior year, he rushed the ball for almost 300 attempts for 2,000 yards, 7 yards per carry, and 28 touchdowns. And he's got some handwork, 10 receptions for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. But there was games where he carried the ball 30 times. I think it was 3 times in the season. He had 6 times 20 plus carries. And then in week 2, week 10, 242 yards. Week 10, 233 yards. And in between the two of them, he had 7 touchdowns. I mean, what are your thoughts when he was coming in to Oklahoma as a high school prospect?
I think when you look at any prospect coming out of high school, you look at the stars, and you immediately, when you see a guy who's 4 or 5 stars, you want to turn on the tape and you want to see a guy who dominates. And I think that's exactly the right word to describe Gavin Sawchuk coming out of high school. You talked about the pure numbers there, absolutely dominant, and the sort of guy that you flip on the tape and it's like, holy hell, this guy's a different beast.
Mm-hmm.
And we've talked about it like even like lower levels than high school in this country. When you play soccer, it was like you could tell a kid was different, like because he would single-handedly take on a team
Yeah.
on his own back. And that's the kind of guy that when you look at Gavin Sawchuk's high school tape, that's what he was like. And there is, you don't win back-to-back Gatorade Player of the Year awards by being a schmuck at the end of the day. Like
Right. Yeah.
you just don't. And this kid was first player to win it back-to-back since Christian McCaffrey.
Whew. Talk to
Num-
him.
numbers are there, tapes there, absolute, beast. And we're going to talk about some of the attributes that he brings to the college football field in a minute, and they were very, very evident on his high school tape. And yeah, he was a kid who I remember writing about for Pro Football Network as an instant impact potential player at the college football level. And obviously that's not how it panned out last season for Oklahoma, and
Right.
there are reasons for that. We talked about it before, we'll talk about it here in a second. There's reasons why he wasn't an instant impact, but I think when you look at this season coming forward, I think everything is there for Gavin Sawchuk to be not just the guy in the Oklahoma Sooners running back room, but one of the best guys in the Big 12 and nationally as well.
Yeah, I am right with you. I love the fact that you said not just at Oklahoma, because I think he can be a guy that's going to burst on. And they say, where was this guy? Because everybody was looking at the names last year. Eric Gray, who was a leader, and we were just waiting for him to kind of take over, and he kind of did. Excuse me, last year, he was catching the ball more out of the backfield. He was a little bit. It seemed like he got that explosiveness back to him, right? And then they flash Bonds. But once Gray had declared and everything was going, and then we went into that evident game, which I call the kind of like the flash in the pan for Sawchuk against Florida State, who was ranked 13th at the time, right? I mean, everything was on the table in that game. He went for, excuse me, 15 attempts for 100 yards and a touchdown. He should have had another touchdown. It was a 16-yard that got called back. I mean, he had everything on display in that game. He had that top end speed, like I call him F1 because once he's out in front, good luck trying to catch him. Right? He's got twitchiness to him. His outside run game, I spoke a little bit to you. Once he gets outside that hash, I get Jahmyr Gibbs vibes like crazy. You know what I mean? Like that the Donovan Edwards Gibbs vibe. You get out there, it's very difficult to catch this kid. He may not be the strongest. I know Edwards is over 200. He added 7 pounds this year, right? It's close to 195 pounds, I believe, right? But like he doesn't shy away from contact. Oliver. He'll stiff you, like give you that set on right in the face. He'll break arm tackles. You know what I mean? So like he got that little Bruce Lee vibe where he just chops and goes coming out the hole. So I think, and I said it to you earlier, I truly believe that he is the prototypical back for the Levy system. Like they all work. There's gonna be plenty for everybody to eat, but he just fits everything in what he developed in that scheme that he has there. What are your thoughts coming into this year? Can he seize like I know we said probably 40 plus carries for the backfield, right? Can he put all that on display and take over this backfield?
Yeah, I definitely think so. And we talked before we came on about the reasons why maybe Javonte Barnes had the advantage last year. And you look at the size difference. You mentioned Gavin Sawchuk coming in at 5'11", sub 190. He's put some on now. But when you're a true freshman running back, you look at those different body types between Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk.
Right.
Javonte Barnes will run into a wall, and the wall, the wall is coming off worse out of that situation. And he was just built better to be an instant impact back in that backfield. You could see it week after week where he would literally barrel roll through guys, bounce off contact, and churn out for more yardage. He was built for that in the first year. And I think coming into the second year for both of these guys, you mentioned there Gavin Sawchuk's put a little bit of weight on. I think he's built more. He's physically more built for it, and I think he's mentally more built for it this year. But you talked about the top elements of his game, that game changing speed. This is a kid who ran multiple sub 11-second 100-meter times at high school, 6 seconds 60-yard 60-meter dash, 21-second 200-meter.
Right.
The speed is incredible. He's going to get to the outside, like you mentioned. He is going to leave defenses for dead in a way that guys like Eric Gray. I was a huge fan of Eric Gray. The footwork that Eric Gray used to display to win at the line of scrimmage, but he was never a guy who would be leaving leaving a trail of dust. He's not leaving a trail of dust and defenders in his wake. I think Gavin Sawchuk can be that guy for the Oklahoma offense this year. I think he's not. You touched on pass catching numbers. He's not a guy who is historically at high school level. Last year, he just had one catch.
Right.
He's not a guy who puts up big numbers or hasn't put up big numbers. But I think it's important to realize that that's not a Gavin Sawchuk can't catch the football. He's not had the opportunity to show what he can do. And when you have seen him, he's a very natural pass catcher out of the backfield for me. So I think you're looking at a kid who has got the speed, has got the explosion, he's got the elusiveness. He has that natural pass catching capability as well. We talked about the mental side of his game, the mental development of his game.
Oh, yeah.
You can see it in that one. You mentioned the FSU game. You can see it right there in action. I can't remember who it was. I saw it on, it was pulled up on social media and pointed out. There was Oklahoma ran two exactly the same plays in that FSU game.
Yes.
And first time, Bosch straight into the middle linebacker.
He went Yep.
Second time, cuts back, finds the gap, touchdown.
Yep.
And that's a kid who is learning on the fly. He's developing on the fly. But he's a kid who can take that, watch what's wrong, learn from his mistakes, and put it to good action on the field. It's a kid who's a finance major. You're not a finance major if you're nothing between the ears.
Correct.
So, and you see that in that FSU game, you see that live in action. And I think we talked about it coming on before we came on air. He has emerged as something of a leader of this Oklahoma running back room through the offseason, from a not just a, well, this guy's going to lead our running back room with, or 80% of the carries, whatever. A vocal and
Yes.
a vocal leader and a leader by actions as well. And I think for a guy who is redshirt freshman going into this season, that's impressive, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because there is older heads in that running back room. Not
Mhm.
a lot of them, and there's a lot of younger guys than him in that running back room this year as well. But it's almost like he knows that. He knows there's a lot of fresh guys coming and they're pushing him, and he knows that taking on that leadership role is going to be almost key to his success this year. And we talked about potential carries. Eric Gray leaves behind 213 carries on the table.
Give me
There's
half that.
yeah, exactly. Well, it's a damn sight more than seven. Half of that's damn sight more than 17 from last year. We know, you look at Jeff Levy's offenses last year, just under 45 attempts per game.
Right.
You look at Ole Miss in 20 and 21, they didn't average less than 45 carries per game. So if you're looking at this purely at a perspective of how many carries can Gavin Sawchuk have in 2023, there's your evidence right there. Like, there is a whole lot of carries. Off-season wise, Javonte Barnes is coming off a foot surgery as well. There's a lot of ticks in the box for Gavin Sawchuk ahead of this season. I think it's extremely exciting if you're an Oklahoma fan. And if you're a guy who's got Gavin Sawchuk squirreled away on a fantasy football team somewhere, that's pretty exciting too, right?
Yeah, I agree. You talked about the FSU game, the back-to-back plays. I actually cut up film for the intro to this, and that was part of it. Was that one play? I watched his eyes. The first play shows him in the backfield, right? He runs, he gets stuffed by the linebacker. He runs right back. They knew they were running the same play. It was like that. They ran right back, set back up. If you watch the game and you watch the replay, it shows his eyes locked into the linebacker. He's reading the defense, and when they call it, he instantly comes and makes that counter and cut back to the left side. Was able to get the touchdown. It's like he gets it on the fly. You know what I mean? He's young. What is he? 20, 19? You know what I mean? He's adjusted on his fly. He's very cerebral. What I do like about him, also I'm on the touchdown, was like his cuts. He'll cut you up like a baba. He's got quick one cut and go, right? And he gets low with his pads, and that is something that for a speedster you don't normally see. Speedsters are trying to get, you know what I mean? They upright and they're out. He can get low, get in a little bit of traffic and get out. So I like that to his game. Um, you give this guy 20 carries a game. He's definitely a guy that can rise and have like a Nicholas Singleton season. What do you thought? You think he can put together 1,000 yards in this setup this year?
I don't see why not. Honestly, I don't see why not. You look at what Eric Gray did last year.
Right.
After the year that he had before, everyone was. This was the thing with Eric Gray last year, right? Everyone was high on him when he was coming out of Tennessee into Oklahoma, and 2021 wasn't great, and then everyone stopped talking about him
Yes.
almost as an NFL draft prospect.
Mm-hmm.
And boom, last season you've got DeMarco Murray as the coach, you've got Jeff Lebby calling plays, you've got that 45 carries a game. And boom, there's your 1,300 yards Eric Gray ended up with last year.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason, and I think you're probably going to see more of a share between Barnes and Sawchuk, but I see no reason why Sawchuk doesn't emerge as the leading ball carrier in terms of pure numbers, and B, why he can't surpass 1,000 yards in doing so.
Yeah,
Average 6.2, what was it, 6.2 yards to carry on a very, very, obviously very, very limited
it's literally one
workload last
game.
year.
He played TCU. He had one
Exactly.
attempt. It was one
Yeah.
attempt for 5 yards. So you know what I mean? Like it was literally the FSU game only because people had opted out. It was at that time, at the end of the season. Now, like, but he did this at in high school. Like he was known for doing. Like he can carry the load. Uh, we said thunder and lightning, right? Well, usually the lightning starts off and the thunder comes in. And when it comes to running back situation, right? So and even in that, and you see the flash, and then you hear the boom. So I think Sawchuk could be a first and second down guy, and then Bonds comes in, on third down or change of pace. But the guy I think that eats more into Bonds is Major, as I feel like he'll eat the goal line. You know what I mean? Like he could take some touchdowns away. Sawchuk is explosive. Uh, like I said, in that game, it was such a small sample size, only 15 attempts, but you could just see, and you could see his growth from the first half to the second half. Like as he was getting farther in the game, he was adjusting that play we talked about and more. I love the kid. He's definitely for me a huge Devy Darling. He's going to be climbing the charts. Oliver, I
I th-
appreciate you. Good,
well,
good.
just one more thing. What I would say as well is, we talk about opportunity. We talk about opportunity to carry. We talk about opportunity to
Right.
scheme. Talk about obviously Barnes as injury. Oklahoma's wide receiver room is not as good this year. You can't tell me their wide receiver room is as good this year as it was last year.
No, Farouk. That's it. Farouk is the only stud. I would say potential stud in that call right now.
For sure, for sure. And then factor in, look at the schedule as well. On the Oklahoma schedule this year, there is a couple of the teams who were amongst the worst in rushing yards allowed
Yep.
in the Big 12. So you look at Kansas, Oklahoma
Mhm.
State, and also the teams coming across from the AAC. So you look at, the teams that they will face from the AAC. So SMU and Tulsa, two of the worst teams for rushing defense last year.
SMU, terrible.
So, yes, that's last year. You can't really gauge or base it on last year's defense. But when
Right.
you look at what they've done, moves in the off season, potential for I think they're still going to be who they were in a lot of respects defensively. So there's plenty of potential for games where Oklahoma can really run it up on the ground and like say Gavin Sawchuk is going to be the kid to
Yeah.
capitalize on that.
Don't let DeMarco Murray teach my man that jump step. All right, Murray gets him in that, and then any of them with that jump step, and it's a wrap. But the other thing I wanted to mention before we close it out is Venables in that program for the last 2 seasons have been building the line. Like they've been known for kind of like OU line. Like this is what they do, both sides of the ball, whether it's defensive or offensively. They just keep adding pieces to it, which just keeps adding more to our point of us making where that running back room can get 40, 50 carries, and they both can be successful. I appreciate you doing the show, Oliver. Before we go and close it out, tell the people where they can find your work.
So you can find me personally, social media on Twitter at OJ Hodgkinson. You can find us at College Football Network, collegefootballnetwork.com, and at CFN365 on Twitter. Building up towards college football season, we're recording this on Monday night. Our all conference and all American teams drop tomorrow. That's Tuesday, August 1st. And we're just so much stuff between now and the start of the season. And then obviously once the season cracks on, it's going to be bosh, bosh, bosh.
Listen, I respect my man's work, everything he does. If you are a fan of college football and you are not subscribed or following this guy, you're doing yourself a disservice. Go click that button. Go follow. Hit that bell so you get all the notifications because my man is the real deal, Holyfield. I appreciate you, Oliver. This is Devy Darlings on CFB Nation. I'm your host, Nino Brown. And Gavin Sawchuk will be a Devy Darling by the end of this year. Randall.